Welcome to the HMO Property Show, by investors for investors. Brought to you by the HMO Property Co, Australia's leaders in impact investing. Investments made with the intention to generate a measurable, beneficial social or environmental impact alongside a positive financial return. Catch us weekly as we discuss all things cash flow positive property investing.
Welcome back to the HMO Property Show. I'm your host Neil Gibb, and this week we've got our team spotlight. And I feel like it's very important that I bring my team into these podcasts so you're getting first-hand information from the people that are out there in the trenches, meeting agents, doing renovations, filling rooms, so that you can understand exactly how this strategy works. So today I've got Scott Townsend. He's my buyer's agent and he's our Newbuild HMO consultant. Scotty, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
This is actually take 2 of the podcast because we forgot to press record. So Jesus. In the first podcast I said, Scott, is this your first podcast? And you said yes, but now this is actually a second one.
one and a half podcasts in now.
Okay, right. Let's get cracking. Scotty, mate, you've been with us since July 2021. How many properties do you reckon you've been involved in?
As mentioned before, mate, it's been, I think, about 20 odd renovations that we've done, and we've sort of got half a dozen new builds on the go at the moment as well, and counting.
Yeah, and it's obviously evolving quite a bit, isn't it? We're trying to move more into the new build space. Interest rates are going up. It's just it's a very evolving beast at the minute.
It is.
Isn't it?
It's moving very quickly. You know, one week something's going on. Next week it's interest rates.
Yeah.
Week after that it's bill prices have increased or whatever it might be, but yeah, you just got to move with the times.
Yeah, true. Mate, what's your background? How did you get into real estate and HMOs and buyers agency?
So, I'm actually a builder by trade, well, from New Zealand originally, if you didn't notice from the accent, but over there you're called a builder because you build an entire home, timber frame construction over there, but that's what we do. So, yeah, I was building homes over there for probably from about age 16 to about 26, 27 before we came across to Australia, and doing the same thing over here. That sort of progressed into new home consulting, so design and consult for 2 of the larger builders in Perth. Did a sort of about 6 years in that industry, which is awesome. And sort of from there moved into a bit of property development, investing, things like that as well, which then sort of naturally progressed into becoming a buyer's agent. Getting asked from friends and things like that as to help them in what I do and what I've done in the past. So it just came pretty naturally to move into that field, to be honest.
Yeah, nice. And the feedback we've had from some of the clients as well is like they can tell that our team are active investors themselves and developers themselves. And you touched briefly on the fact there that you've been investing in development. So can you give us a bit of background on that too?
Yeah, so I bought the first investment property many moons ago. Sort of, we actually forced into that one by my mate's old man. He said, you boys need to start putting your money into property instead of piss, And so that was at quite a young age. We went halves, me and a good mate.
Good advice.
It was very good advice. Bought the first property, like early 20s it was. Ever since been sort of accumulating rental properties and things, and then sort of moved into more developing. First development project was just a knockdown sort of splitter out in Swan View. That was when I was in the new home consulting field. I sort of had a pretty good grip on what was available land-wise in the area, what values were and things. So, we did that one for the first one, sold a couple of blocks of land, and it opened the eyes a little bit, which then moved into bigger products where we sort of have built a couple of townhouses and things like that, sold them, and now moved into, got a four-unit subdivision happening up in the hills in Kalamunda.
Nice.
And we'll just keep going.
Nice, mate, nice. How's the Kalamunda deal going?
Going well, actually. We just saw the progress on the weekend. We've sort of got two of the villas brick height now, two down, 2 to go, and should see some roofs going on soon. So that one's been moving very well.
What's the soil conditions up there? Is it
beautiful,
rock?
Lovely rock. Yeah, we had a bit of a blowout in those site works, but that's what happens up there. Yeah, we were on the rock breaker, was hammering away for a couple of weeks, but we sort of knew about it, but you can get caught out if you're not careful.
Once you've got the rock out the way, though, solid foundation. Hey,
exactly. She was all go after that.
But for the people that don't know, Scott, what is a buyer's agent, and what's the role of one?
So buyer's agents basically in place to represent the buyer, like a selling agent represents the vendor. They're out to get the vendor the best price to sell their property. The buyer's agent does exactly the same for the buyer to make sure that the buyer is paying the right price for a property, getting a good quality asset, doing the negotiating, everything like that. Yeah, selling agents, they are good. They are sharks, most of them. They're very, very good at what they do. They know how to get people up from, say, a 500k purchase and sneak you up to 550 before you know it. If there's other purchases there, sort of, they create that competition. They
false competition.
Correct. Yeah, they're very. That's their role. That's what they're paid to do.
Yeah.
Otherwise, there'd be no point in having one. So we're there to represent the buyer, make sure that we sort of give them the market value of areas, do the negotiating on their behalf. Feel out the selling agent. We get a pretty good vibe off them if they, what price we will buy the property for. They're pretty straight with us, and make everything go through smoothly.
And you're in the market constantly, aren't you, as well? So you're getting the negotiation thing down pat. So can you tell when a selling agent is being honest? Have you got that sort of sixth sense?
You sort of learn the areas and learn who are the guns in the areas. Every suburb's Australia wide. Every suburb's got their main top selling agent, and then you see other agents that you've sort of not seen before. And generally, most of the time, if you're dealing with one of the better agents, they don't give too much away. But then you sort of get some of the other agents who are sort of probably just, I suppose, not as sharp and a bit easier to feel out. But you can get a pretty good vibe off them. But on the other hand, that's not to say they're not doing their job right or anything like that. You work with the selling agents, and once they sort of know who you are, they like to work with you as well, because generally a buyer's agent will bring a decent quality client to the table. Yep. We generally only work with clients who are pre-approved, to have the funds, all that kind of thing. So they are sort of inclined to often like to work with us too, because it's going to be a nice, easy deal. The seller's going to get their money. They're not going to have to put their house back on the market because of a finance fall over or anything like that. Yep. So, yeah, it does help.
Yeah. And how does a buyer's agent's role change in a market that's buoyant and a market that's flat? Because it's not going to be the same for both markets, is it?
No, the fundamentals are similar. You are going to be market research, checking comparable sales, what's sold recently, how much is selling in the area, what stock levels are available, all that kind of thing. In the slower market, though, you can be a bit more savage with your offers, and if you do miss one, hey, there's going to be another one probably around the corner, because there might be more stock on the market, things like that. So, you can go in a bit lower, and there might be a bit more of a motivation from a seller to get rid of a property. In a busier market like what we're in now, a bit more challenging. There's going to be generally multiple offers because there's such a tight stock level. Not as many houses to choose from. So when one does come up and we need that property for a client, you probably can't go in too hard with like low ball offers. You're going to have to probably pay relatively close to market price. If there are multiple offers on the table, you need to we sort of work the selling agent and try and get them to indicate where we need to be to win that property. Yep. Again, a good selling agent will not tell you, because they aren't really allowed to. Maybe a not so good selling agent might say, "Oh, hey, look, if you come to this number, you're probably going to get it." Good
one to work with.
Yeah. So, and that's the thing. You don't want to cut yourself 5k short because you want to go in at 440. And if you can get out of the selling agent, they're going to let that thing go to you for 445. If that's still a good buy, you're going to take that property rather than going in a little bit under and missing it entirely and starting the search again. Yeah. Because in that time, you might take another, say, a few weeks or a month to find the next property. The market might have moved that figure that you missed out on, because at the moment the market is moving like that, and it's a case of securing a property rather than mucking around, missing them for the sake of a couple of grand sometimes, and then moving forward, getting that client into that property, getting that rent return coming in.
Yep. So what I got from that there is, in a downward market, we're getting good pricing, negotiating well and getting access to off-market opportunities. In an up-market, we're making sure that the client doesn't pay too much for the property, in a nutshell.
Making sure they're not paying too much, as at the same time making sure we are securing a property if it is a good buy. Paying market price for a property. Yep. In saying that, we are still buying off-market at the moment. We just purchased one off-market a couple of weeks ago that we were, again, agent relationship, gave us a call and said, "Hey, got this one just coming on soon. It's in pretty bad condition, but the seller is tidying it up to bring it to market. She said, come and get the keys from the office, you can take yourself through. That's a bit of a bonus there, just having that relationship. She wasn't there. She just gave us the keys. We went for a bit of a look through the property. It was pretty bad. There was a step ladder and a paintbrush sort of lying on the floor. You could tell he was having a crack, giving the walls a lick, and there was rubbish everywhere and stuff. And you could tell that he hadn't done too much of this before.
Yep. It's a good sign though as a buyer, isn't it? If you're not scared of that stuff.
Well, that's right. We do a full renovation on the properties anyway. We're going to give him a full paint job. If he was to go through and paint it, we're probably going to do it again anyway because it probably wasn't up to scratch. So, what's the point in paying the higher price for a slightly renovated property if we can come in and pay maybe 20-30 grand less than that, and that money can go towards the client's renovation. So we came in with that one, and market value around that area for something that had a bit of a renovation was probably about the 540 mark, somewhere there. Again, this thing did need a bit of love, but we were going to be doing it anyway. And we had this buyer, fortunately enough, was also a cash buyer. So we just came in and said, look, we'll pay 500k for this cash buyer. He can leave the place literally as it is right now. We'll tidy it up and everything. And they came back and said, yeah, we'll take it. So there, I think, was a distressed sale of some sort. Might have been a breakup or something, unfortunately. But we got the deal, and it was off market and in this market too, which is always handy.
We are the solution to these problems, aren't we?
Yeah.
Property is someone's problem.
Correct. And that buyer and seller. We're the solution to that seller. We're also the solution to that buyer.
Yeah, absolutely. So buy-ins are quite a new thing to Western Australia. They're becoming more and more common now as well, and they're pretty common over east. Anyone might feel that they can go out there and buy a property, and that's fair enough to them. But what would you say to somebody that's looking for a property to convert into a HMO and not using a buyer's agent?
Yeah, especially with the conversion to an HMO, there's a lot you need to consider. First and foremost, we probably just need to look at the layout of the home and see how many bedrooms we can achieve from that property, because the difference in maybe only getting 4 or 5 out of bedrooms instead of 6 or 5 or 6, for example, you could be talking over $10,000 a year in cash flow that you're missing out on by just not getting the property quite right. We are generally trying to get as many en-suites into a property as possible, because those rooms rent out for a premium. The vacancy is very, very low on an ensuited room. So if we can get an ensuite to each bedroom, that's great. You need the big enough rooms to start with. You need to make sure you've, say, got your 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom, perhaps with a games room at the back, and perhaps with a formal lounge dining at the front. Convert those other 2 areas into sort of a micro apartment style room with an ensuite, space for a couch, space for a kitchenette, whatever.
Yep.
And if you can get, say, the 6-bedroom, 6-bathroom ideally, or 6x5 or something like that out of the property, it's going to perform really well. But again, if you come in and you sort of buy your own, and you might still buy an okay property, but if you're just, say, 1 room short of what you could have from another property, again, if that room's a $250 per week room, you're talking again to over 10 grand a year in cash flow you might miss out on. That's just one aspect of it, but you also got to make sure things like structural walls are not in places that you need to be taking them out. Last thing you want to do is have to go and pay extra for an engineer to come through and say, oh, you need to put a great big steel beam up here or whatever in order to do this. That's going to add some substantial costs to the reno, along with things like sewer locations. If the sewer's down one side of the property and you're trying to throw en-suites in over the other side, you might be, again, paying that plumber's rates, which are pretty high, to be digging a bloody trench along the back of the property that you didn't need to if you bought maybe a better layout.
You touched on plumbers being expensive there as well. There's obviously part of the service that we offer is when we find a property for somebody, we don't just say buy this property and we'll renovate it for you. We give them a full breakdown of what it's going to look like in the way of renovation costs, and you work very closely with Mel, our project manager, and obviously getting live feedback from her on cost increases. Now, how are you seeing cost increases in the way of materials and labour at the minute, and how have you seen them increase over the last 6 months?
Yeah, forever changing, that's for sure. When I look back on some of the prices we were doing renos for 12 months ago, it's unbelievable.
It's almost doubled, hasn't it?
Yeah, not far off. Yep. Not far off. We just keep in contact on a probably a weekly, fortnightly basis. To be honest, she'll tell me, look, flooring probably need to add a couple of grand for per house now. It's gone up a little bit. Plumbers' rates might have gone up a little bit. all sorts of different stuff. There's always something happening, just like the build prices are creeping up between trades and things. So it's just a case of keeping on top of it. When we do give the clients the breakdowns of the costs for the renovation, we are generally itemising it, saying, look, we're going to do a full paint job on this. It's probably going to be about 10, 11K. We're going to put 2 en-suites in at the price of, whatever it might be, and everything. And again, some houses are going to require more than others. So again, renovations costs are always going to fluctuate between houses.
Yep. And how long does it take you to find a property that's suitable for a conversion? Are they everywhere? Are they easy to find?
Yeah, it depends on the client's brief, really. If a client's got a big budget and are just like, go and do it for me, and I don't want any input, look, that's going to make life pretty easy. But again, everyone's got their own brief. They might already own property north side of the river and they want to buy something south side or whatever it might be. So it could be, if the client's got a good budget and we could find something in a couple of days, or look, it could take a couple of months. Ideally, not the latter, but it's about finding the right property. It's just because a client's been in the system for a couple of weeks, we're not going to just go and grab them something because we want to keep it moving through. We're going to make sure that we buy the right asset. If it takes an extra 2 or 3 weeks to find the right product, so that client's going to have a good long, rental property with longevity, with rooms that are always going to be filled, paying them each year, not having vacancies and headaches and things like that. We'd rather take the extra time and get the right asset.
And what sort of steps do you take before you buy these things? Like when you go out to a property and you think, oh, this one might work, what's your due diligence process to make sure it can work?
Generally, to start with, we're generally scouting the market on the major platforms, getting agents sending us stuff all the time. Ideally, if a floor plan can get sent through, we can work out pretty quickly if it's going to be a yes or a no. And then we're going to sort of look at areas that we need to, if there's sort of an oversupply in that area of rentals and things, which there's absolutely not anywhere in Australia at the moment, I don't think.
Yep.
But, we're going to look at things like what the demand is like in that area to start with. We've obviously got a pretty big portfolio of rooms that we manage, so we also keep tabs on where we've got properties too, and, we don't want to just put, too many in one area too. So we always we're keeping our portfolio sort of managed and moving around in different suburbs, seeing where things are working well and maybe could be working better, or what areas have that high demand, and sort of focusing on those areas to try and get new properties in those areas too.
Yeah. We've spoken quite a bit about established properties. With the new build opportunities that are out there as well, what's the steps that you follow there to make sure that there's demand in an area and the new build is actually going to stack up in that area as well? Yeah,
so generally trying to get into areas that are in fairly well established suburbs, not going miles out of the city, finding land in sort of like brownfields estates areas rather than your greenfields estates ideally. But if you are going into the greenfields, the more tightly held sort of ones with less sort of stock and new land around them, that kind of thing. Yep. You want to make sure there's the infrastructure there already. House values are sort of on par with what we're doing, and making sure that they're going to be high demand rentals.
Yep. And what's the sort of time it takes, going back to establish now, what's the sort of time it takes when you find a property to doing the due diligence, finance approval, settlement, and then actually getting tenants in that place? Yeah, so you're looking at probably, once we've sort of found the property and are looking to buy it, we'll get the feasibility across to the client ASAP. If I go and view a property on a weekend, on a Saturday or whatever it might be, I'll be doing that feasibility that same day and telling the client, look, get ready to check your messages. I'm going to be sending it across to you. Have a look at it. Call me or call you. We'll walk you through it. We break all the room rates down. We break all the renovation costs down, everything like that. And then if the numbers are sort of landing where they want them to, then we'll settle. We'll go for the purchase on this pretty much ASAP. Get an offer written. Get it to the agent, and try and keep it moving through. Other people might sort of be waiting for the weekend to finish, or looking at other properties on the Sunday, or talking about it with the partner on the Monday. If we can get that offer through and done nice and quickly, there's going to be less competition. The agent's going to see that we are serious and going to keep things moving quickly for them. So try and get it off the market as soon as possible. Once that has happened, generally you've got your finance period.
depending on the client's finance. Generally, clients come to us either pre-approved or close to it. So we generally put quite short finance timeframes in. It makes it look good on the offer as well for the agent. Mm-hmm. Secure that. Generally, finance is going to come through for most clients in sort of a month or so, 28 days, 28 days.
Yep.
And then from there, there's a settlement period, generally of 21 days from the date of finance approval.
Yep.
A couple of other things happen in between there, though. Once the finance is approved, we organise a structural building and pest on the property for the client. Again, that's making sure that everything is structurally sound, and then if there's anything wrong with the property, it's up to the seller to get that repaired. Mm-hmm. From there, that's going to happen, like I say, at the end of the finance approval sort of period, around about when they get their approval. We're going to do that between then and settlement. Yep. We also do our final walkthrough inspection before settlement as well. That's when we go through with the Matterport camera, which takes a 3D walkthrough of the property. We use that for the renovations to give to the trades, to tell them what we need doing. They can actually quote off that. It's quite high tech. It's pretty cool, that camera. Yeah, a bit of kit. That gets done sort of prior to the settlement, generally a couple of weeks before settlement. That way we can sort of start on the plans and start on the renovation quotes and all of that kind of thing before the property is actually transferred into the new buyer's name, just to get on the front foot with it, really. Once that property is then settled and in the name of the new owner, our client, we can then lodge for a building permit to do the renovation with the council. So they take a few weeks in most cases to sort of get back from the council the building permit as to what we're going to do with the conversion, all the en-suites, all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. That comes back to us in a few weeks, and then sort of once that's back, we get the trades on site pretty well ASAP. We generally allow around about sort of 10 weeks or so from the settlement period, 10 or 12 weeks from settlement to have it ready to be tenanted, basically. So
furniture in place.
Yeah, get the furniture all in, staged, professional photos taken up online, and get the inquiry. Some properties start getting inquiry before they're staged, just depending on the demand in the area. Hey,
yeah. Well, the demand's crazy at the minute, isn't it? You mentioned there you act really fast when you find a good property, and mainly because there's competition out there. What are you seeing in the market right now? Is it still as hot as it was 12 months ago? You're still getting like 10, 20, 30 people? Yeah,
it's sort of suburb dependent, but most of the places we're buying, you are getting multiple offers still. It cooled for a couple of months when these interest rate, the commentary around these interest rates sort of happened. What was that, around about May, wasn't it? The first rate rise happened, or somewhere
September there. Now. Time flies, doesn't it?
Yeah, big time. But that was sort of the talk of the town. Rates were rising from 1.8% up to 2.3%, yahoo. And then now they're up at sort of the high threes, which was historically where they always. It's still lower than that.
Still low, isn't it? It's still affordable.
It's insane. Yeah, it's insane. But I think people are starting to get that now. People are realising, hang on a minute, these were the rates in 2019. Yep. We were all buying property then. Why aren't we buying property now? The only thing that's changed is people's rents have gone up lots since 2019. So. People are now going, okay, well, we get it. The rates have gone up a little bit, but it's probably going to finish pretty soon. The market in the last couple of months has certainly gotten busier again. We are seeing multiple. Look, sometimes on the weekend you turn up and there's cars all down the street. I generally try and get to the open homes early to sort of get a bit of a feel for who's coming through. Yep. Stay the whole time at the open home to sort of see what conversations the agent's happening with people and all that kind of thing. And there's cars all down the street. What do you do? There's going to be multiple offers on that property, but it's key to act pretty quickly and feel out the agent as to what's the motivation from the seller. Is it a breakup? Is it? Do they need a quick settlement? Do they need a longer settlement? Do they need to buy again and they need some time? So working out what terms they want is just as powerful as what price you're going to pay. Sometimes, someone might give you a higher price, but if we find out that seller wants the money in the bank ASAP, we might get it for a lower price by saying we will settle in 21 days, opposed to someone who's going to take a couple of months to go and get finance and have a longer settlement period.
Yeah, which is kind of what happened with the off-market opportunity.
Yeah.
The guy was cash, no finance required, just a 21-day settlement.
It was squeaky clean, and that's what they like to see.
Perfect. What's the kind of sweet spot purchase price you're seeing right now for established properties? And then when does that become unviable to buy an established property? And what's the sort of sweet spot for new builds as well?
Yeah, so established historically it's sort of around about 450 to 650k. I'll probably dare say now it's probably more about 5 to 600k is probably the sweet spot to get the established. You're still getting the good room rates. You're still buying at a lower entry cost, and you're not sort of overpaying for something, because by the time we renovate it, you don't want to get too high with the total capital. So that's probably the level we sort of look at, between 5 and 600k. It gets you in a good sort of middle ring suburb, established area, good sized land, all that kind of thing. That's where we're sort of looking for that. When it comes to the new builds, that can vary a little bit, just depending on what size we're doing. But I'd probably say with the new builds, it's probably around the 8 or 900k mark. So 750 to 900k mark is probably where they kind of land, to maximise the yields and cash flow on those as well, without getting too high.
Yeah. And why is the price point high for the new builds compared to the established ones? What?
Just the building costs at the moment. Obviously, building costs have increased, but we are building a purpose-built 6-bedroom, 6-bathroom home that isn't just a basic build. It does have all fire safety upgrades in it. Nice, hobless walk-in showers. We make the homes pretty decent. We're not just big rooms. Yeah, we're not just putting 2.8 bedrooms in there. That they got space for a kitchenette, a desk, table, that kind of thing. They do obviously have their own en-suites, robes, and then you've got a fully functioning kitchen in the common area as well. With higher ceilings throughout, LED lights, overhead covers, stone tops. That's why the prices are a bit higher. But you want the home to have longevity. Not have maintenance problems. Whilst keeping it low maintenance as well. And that's generally where the main costs come in. It's just more in that construction price.
There's no right or wrong answer for this, Scott, but what are you leaning more towards at the minute? New builds are established, just from what you know, from what's going on in the market. There's place for both. I think you get pretty good bang for buck with your established, and you get your tenants in there nice and quickly. That's what I like about that. You will be a longer time period for your new build, but again, your end outcome for the new build is going to be quite attractive too, because you're going to have really strong depreciation benefits. You're going to have a brand new home. End of the day, even though the established properties, we pretty much make them look brand new from the inside once we've renovated them. If I was probably doing it, and I had that sort of lower budget and established property on a good bit of land in a good middle ring suburb, is probably always going to go well. Yeah, nice. What sort of metrics or data are you checking before you're picking suburbs to put these things in?
Generally, rental vacancy rates are going to be a big one. Not that we have a problem with those anywhere in Australia at the moment. It's there's low vacancy pretty much everywhere, especially here in Perth. We're looking at that kind of thing, what room rates we can get in those suburbs. We generally don't put these properties in sort of high student demand suburbs, Bentley and those kind of places where we're around the universities, even though on one hand people probably think, should we put it by a university? It would make sense, wouldn't it? Not really. There's a lot of student accommodation around there, and we're not actually targeting the student market. Our room rates are higher than what a sort of basic student house will pay. We're looking at so where the homes are going to go. We've obviously got quite a big portfolio scattered throughout Perth. We don't like to load up a suburb or put a couple of HMOs on one street, that kind of thing. We'll look at where the properties are currently, where there is big demand, land that's going to be close to infrastructure and things like that, and also what sort of the median price in the areas are. For properties. So we want to sort of generally buy in at a lower entry cost, and then because we are going to be doing renovations and things, we want to bring that sort of up toward that median, rather than sort of going in at sort of too much of a higher level over above.
Add value through renovation. Yeah, nice. What's the sort of target yield and cash flow you look for, and what do you think is like a good target to aim for?
Yeah, so with that, we probably... I'll probably say between about 10 and 13% as a gross. Because running the HMO obviously has some obviously costs of rates, and the owner pays the power and things like that. So if it's up around that 10, 11, 12% gross, generally after costs, property management, all of the above, it's going to come down and sit around about that 6% net, which is good, because most property investors are chasing 4.5 to 5.5 to maybe 6% gross. But then by the time you pay your rates and insurances and property management fees, all of that, you might essentially be left with sort of 1%.
Or sometimes negative as well.
Negative, negative gearing, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, if we're generally aiming for about 10, 11%, 12% if we can hit it, which then reverts back to about a net 6 or 6.5.
Yeah, and that's unencumbered as well. So once we leverage them up, even with the interest rates that we're seeing now, and like you touched on, like interest rates have gone from 3.8%, so not a massive change. When you leverage these things up to 80%, what sort of net return are you seeing on your cash in the deal there?
Your cash on cash. Your cash on cash can be sort of anywhere from 12, 15 percent. If you're sort of going up to a 90% loan or sitting around about that 85, 88%, where you will pay a little bit of mortgage insurance, but in that sort of sweet spot there, your mortgage insurance is pretty minimal. You could be sitting on sort of 15% cash on cash, which is pretty good. If you can do that and create that cash flow at the end of the year. You're never going to sort of go broke if your property's paying your cash flow each week.
Great feedback, Scott. Thank you, bud. So what's the last question? If you had $250k cash available and you could service a $900,000 purchase price, what would you buy and why? And where?
Yeah, I wouldn't ever stretch myself up to my maximum. I would always want to keep buffer there for. I don't just want to buy one property. I want to make one property purchase move me to my next one. So I'd probably keep that borrowing capacity or bring it in somewhere around about the maybe 500k mark. Then I know what I've got left in the bank there. If I had 250k, you could look at something like a middle ring established suburb. Go in with maybe an 85%. Loan to value ratio. You're going to put a pretty small deposit in and do your renovation. You're probably going to be left with, still some borrowing capacity of about 400k. By the time you've done the property, you're going to have that cash flow as well. So that 400k might jump up to a new borrowing capacity of 500k, and then in 12 months' time or so, you might be able to go again. So I'd probably look for something in the middle ring. Buying around about the 500 to 550k mark, and getting the renovation done and get that tenanted and go from there. Get
the tenants in, get the cash flow coming.
That's right. Yeah, as soon as you've got that, and as soon as you can show that record of the cash flow coming in, opens you up to refinancing or sort of future purchases.
Just as we were talking there, I was just thinking. So you bought roughly 24 houses, you reckon?
Yeah, it's probably about 24, 25.
Let's say the average cash flow is 25 grand a year, so that's probably around $500,000 worth of cash flow you've created for clients. Well done, mate. Scotty, thanks very much for coming on. Obviously, the market's constantly moving, so I think we'll get you on again in a couple of months and find out what's going on out there.
Sounds good.
Thanks very much, bud. And I'm going to leave you with this quote, guys. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together.
Thanks for listening. Make sure you tune in the same time next week so you stay up to date with all the cash flow positive property updates.